The days of needing a government permission slip to exercise your core constitutional rights are numbering down fast, and a single Supreme Court order could be the final nail in the coffin for restrictive permit laws across the entire country. You might think this fight is already over because of past rulings, but the biggest and messiest legal battle is actually just starting to boil over in lower courts right now. This is not just some distant debate for lawyers in robes, because this could determine whether you are a law-abiding citizen or a criminal the next time you leave your house with your firearm. We are talking about the aftermath of major rulings and the ongoing bitter fight against arbitrary licensing standards that turn rights into privileges. I'm going to break down exactly what is happening, why the headline is only half the story, and the massive risks you face during this volatile transition period. If you care about your rights and want the truth without the spin, hit subscribe right now so you can stay ahead of these rapid changes before they affect your daily life. To understand why this is blowing up, you have to look at the Supreme Court's decision in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case from 2022. That ruling effectively told states that they could no longer make you prove a special need to carry a firearm just to exercise your Second Amendment rights. It was a massive win on paper, but in the real world, many states just pivoted to new, complex permitting schemes to keep the barrier as high as possible. The court said you have a right to carry, but state legislatures are doing everything they can to make that right as difficult, expensive, and confusing to exercise as they possibly can. This creates a dangerous gap between what the highest court in the land said and what is actually happening in your hometown or on your local highway. You need to understand that the lower courts are currently in a state of chaos, with some judges trying to follow the Supreme Court's new rules and others doing everything they can to ignore them. This inconsistency is exactly what creates the trap for ordinary people who are just trying to follow the law. You can be fully compliant with the law in one county and suddenly find yourself in a legal nightmare just by crossing a line into a different jurisdiction. The situation is getting so tense that many legal observers believe the Supreme Court will have to step in again soon to issue an order that forces compliance. This isn't just about a disagreement on a minor policy detail, because it cuts to the heart of whether your rights are subject to state permission or if they are truly protected by the Constitution. If that order comes, it will force states to drop their restrictive permit schemes overnight, potentially leading to a wave of new rules and regulations that you need to be prepared for. This is not some far-off possibility. It is a live legal issue that is moving through the court system as we speak. Most people see the news about gun rights and assume that everything is settled or that the courts will fix it all by next week, but that is a dangerous assumption to make. The legal process is grindingly slow, and in the meantime, your safety and your legal standing are on the line every single day. If you want to share your thoughts on whether you think the courts are doing enough to protect your rights, head down to the comments and let me know your take. Are you seeing these changes in your state, or are things staying exactly the same as they were before the big court decisions? Here is what this means for you, and I need you to listen closely because this is where the theory hits the road. Imagine you are a concealed carry holder who travels for work or for family vacations, moving through different states with different interpretations of the law. Under the old system, you might have relied on permits to keep you safe from prosecution, but now that the rules are shifting, those permits might not be as ironclad as you think. You could be pulled over for a simple traffic violation, and an officer might be working off an old understanding of the law or a new restrictive local policy that you haven't heard about yet. That traffic stop is a nightmare scenario for anyone who carries, because it puts your entire future in the hands of an officer who may be confused about which laws are still in effect. If the officer believes that your permit is not valid, or that you are carrying in a prohibited place based on a local non-constitutional rule, you are in immediate danger of arrest. Even if you are eventually cleared in court, the cost, the stress, and the danger of that initial interaction are things you can never get back. This is why you cannot afford to rely on what you think the law says. You have to know exactly where you stand in every single jurisdiction you visit. This also affects people who are just starting their journey as new gun owners and who are trying to figure out how to get their carry permit for the first time. You might be looking at a system that is designed to frustrate you, with long waits, confusing paperwork, and fees that seem meant to discourage you from completing the process. If the Supreme Court issues an order that strikes down these permit laws, you might find yourself in a position where you don't even need that permit anymore, but you also won't have the training or the guidance that the system currently provides. It creates a vacuum of information that can lead to honest mistakes. You also have to think about the people who keep a firearm at home for protection and who are now seeing the push to regulate sensitive places even in the private sphere. Some states are trying to pass laws that would ban you from carrying in places that were previously considered open to the public, like parks, stores, or certain types of parking lots. If you are not paying attention to these local, specific, and often changing rules, you could walk into a prohibited area without even realizing you have broken the law. This is the new reality of the permit and carry landscape, and it is a trap for the unwary. This is where the next fight starts, and it is the part that most people are still not seeing when they look at the headlines. The battle is shifting from the broad constitutional questions about whether you have a right to carry to the specific technical questions about where and how you can exercise that right. We are about to see a massive amount of litigation focused on these sensitive places and permit requirements, and it is going to be incredibly complex to follow. You need to understand that this is the new front line of the Second Amendment, and it is going to be just as hard fought as the initial cases. Here's the thing about this next phase that might surprise you. It is going to be even more confusing than the current situation. As states scramble to pass new restrictions to replace the old ones that were struck down, you are going to see a rapid-fire succession of laws, injunctions, and court orders. An injunction is basically a pause button that a court hits on a law, preventing it from being enforced while the legal battle continues. You will see these pause buttons being hit and then lifted repeatedly, creating a situation where the law for you literally changes from month to month or even week to week. If you want to stay ahead of this chaos and make sure you aren't caught off guard by a sudden shift in the law, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are tracking every single move in these courtrooms, so you don't have to spend your life digging through legal briefs. The bigger issue here is that the government is essentially playing a game of whack-a-mole with your rights. Every time a court strikes down a restriction, the state comes up with a new, slightly different version, hoping it will survive the next legal challenge. It is exhausting, and it is designed to wear you down until you just stop trying. Let's look at some of the common myths I am seeing online because there is a lot of bad information that could get you into real trouble. One big myth is that because the Supreme Court ruled in favor of carry rights, you can now carry your firearm absolutely anywhere you want without any restrictions at all. This is completely false and will get you arrested faster than anything else I can think of. The ruling was about the permit process itself, not about erasing every single rule regarding where you can or cannot carry a firearm. You still have to follow the specific laws of the place where you are standing. Another myth is that if you have a permit from your home state, it is now automatically valid in every other state in the country because of the Supreme Court ruling. This is not true, and it is a dangerous assumption that has led to many people facing serious charges. Reciprocity, which is the agreement between states to honor each other's permits, is still handled state by state. The Supreme Court did not create a national concealed carry permit, and they did not force states to recognize each other's licenses. You are still on the hook to know the specific rules of every state you enter, and that has not changed at all. The third myth I see all the time is the idea that the police don't know the law anyway, so it doesn't matter what the new ruling says. While it is true that you might run into an officer who isn't up to date, assuming that ignorance will save you is a terrible strategy for your personal defense, even if the officer is wrong about the law, being in a position where you are being questioned or detained is not the time to be playing lawyer on the side of the road. Your primary goal during any interaction with law enforcement should be to remain calm, respectful, and safe, not to win a legal debate in the moment. Think of the current legal landscape like driving a car on a road that is under constant construction. You might have a map that says the road is open, but if you ignore the road closed signs and the new detours, you're going to end up in a ditch. The legal rulings are the map, but the state-level reactions are the construction crews, and they are constantly changing the path. You have to keep your eyes on the signs in front of you, not just the map in your glove box, if you want to make it to your destination in one piece. This is the only way to manage the risk effectively right now. This is also a moment for you to think about your own level of preparedness and what you are doing to stay educated about the law in your area. If you are relying on social media posts or headlines to tell you what the law is, you are at a massive disadvantage. Those sources are designed to be emotional and click-worthy, not accurate or practical for your specific situation. You need to seek out reliable, grounded information and always double-check the local statutes before you assume anything about your rights. Your personal responsibility for your own actions and your own safety is more important than ever. The emotional weight of this is also something that we need to talk about, because this isn't just about technicalities. For many people, carrying a firearm is a deeply personal decision tied to the safety of their family and their own peace of mind. When the law becomes a moving target, it creates an underlying sense of anxiety that is totally unfair to the law-abiding citizen. You deserve to know where you stand, and you deserve to be able to protect your family without feeling like you are constantly walking on eggshells. That frustration you feel is real, and it is shared by millions of other people who are also just trying to navigate this mess. Let's look forward at what might happen in the coming months, because this is where the picture gets even more complex. We are likely to see more circuit splits, which is when two different federal courts of appeals look at the same issue and come to completely opposite conclusions. When that happens, it is almost a guarantee that the Supreme Court will have to step in to settle the matter once and for all. This will likely be the next big wave of cases that decides the fate of those sensitive places, restrictions I mentioned earlier. It is going to be a long, drawn-out process, and you need to be prepared for the uncertainty to continue. There is also the possibility that some states will take this opportunity to push back even harder, using executive orders or emergency legislation to bypass the courts entirely. This is a tactic that we have seen before, and it is one of the most frustrating parts of the legal battle because it essentially resets the clock on all the progress that has been made. You might see a law get struck down in court only for it to be replaced by a new, almost identical law the very next day. It is a game of endurance, and the states that are committed to restricting rights know exactly what they are doing. This is where your voice and your involvement actually matter, because the courts are not the only place where this battle is being won or lost. Local politics, town hall meetings, and the pressure you put on your representatives play a huge role in how these issues are handled in the long run. When politicians realize that people are paying attention to the fine print of these gun laws, they are much more careful about what they try to pass. You have the power to make them understand that this is not a winning issue for them, and that is a powerful tool to have in your kit. I want you to think about how this affects the people in your life who might not be as tapped into these issues as you are. If you have a friend who is new to gun ownership, or a family member who is considering getting their permit, be the person who helps them find the right information. Help them navigate the resources they need, encourage them to take a training class, and remind them that the law is a serious business that requires real attention. When we help each other stay informed, we make the entire community stronger and safer, and that is how we build resilience against these legal attacks. This all comes back to a core principle that I want you to carry with you. Never trade your caution for convenience. It is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that because something seems like it should be legal, it must be. But in the world of gun laws, what should be and what is are often two completely different things. You always have to do the work to be sure of your footing, especially when you are carrying, traveling, or interacting with authorities. That extra step you take to be sure might just be the one that keeps you out of a legal disaster. It is also worth noting that the legal experts themselves are often split on what these rulings mean for the long term. Even within the legal community, there is no consensus on how the history and tradition test is supposed to work in every single scenario. If the experts are having a hard time agreeing, it is totally normal for you to be confused as well. Give yourself a little bit of grace, but do not let that confusion be an excuse for inaction or carelessness. Use the uncertainty as a reason to be more diligent, not less. As we move forward, keep a close eye on the cases coming out of the federal appeals courts, because those are the indicators of where the Supreme Court will eventually have to land. Look for patterns in how these judges are interpreting the history and tradition standard, because that will tell you a lot about the future direction of the law. You are watching the constitutional doctrine of the Second Amendment being built in real time, and it is a fascinating, if occasionally frustrating, thing to witness. You are getting a front row seat to one of the most important legal shifts in American history. I want to emphasize again that this is a long game, and the results are not going to appear overnight. If you are looking for a quick fix or a single magic wand that will solve all these problems, you're going to be disappointed. The real solution is a sustained, long-term commitment to the rule of law, to public education, and to the careful exercise of your rights. That is the only way to ensure that the wins we see in court today are cemented for tomorrow. It is not about the sprint. It is about the endurance of the community and the strength of our resolve. It is easy to get cynical when you see the same fights playing out over and over again, but don't let that bitterness take root. Cynicism is the enemy of action, and action is what we need right now. When you stay engaged, when you keep learning, and when you continue to be a responsible citizen, you are doing more to protect your rights than any single court ruling could ever do on its own. You are the final line of defense for the Constitution, and that is a responsibility that deserves your best effort. So let's wrap this up with the three most important takeaways that I want you to remember from this conversation. First, the legal landscape for permit laws is in a state of flux, and you cannot assume that the rules you knew yesterday will protect you today. Second, The fight is moving to specific technical regulations like sensitive places, which means you have to be much more careful about where and how you carry. Third, your personal knowledge and your commitment to doing the homework are your greatest assets in staying safe and out of trouble. This matters in the long term because it is about preserving the core of your freedom and ensuring that you and your family can live without the constant threat of legal peril. It is about maintaining your dignity as a free citizen and refusing to let the government dictate the terms of your safety. By staying informed, you are not just watching the news, you are participating in the process of protecting your rights and securing your future. That is an empowering place to be, and it is how we make sure that the principles of this country stay alive and well. Always remember that the goal is not to live in fear or to stop living your life, but to be smart, prepared, and ready for whatever the legal system throws your way. You are a member of a community that values liberty, and together we are building a foundation of knowledge that is hard to shake. Do not let the complexity of the law scare you away from your rights. Let it motivate you to master the details. You are more capable than you think, and staying informed is the first step toward true readiness. Keep pushing yourself to learn, keep asking the hard questions, and keep holding the system accountable through your own responsible, law-abiding behavior. The fight for your rights is not just happening in the Supreme Court, it is happening every day in the way you conduct yourself and in the way you teach others to do the same. Thank you for taking the time to walk through this with me. It's a lot to process, but you are better prepared now than you were 20 minutes ago. If you found this breakdown useful and want to keep standing up for your rights and staying informed, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We will keep digging into these cases as they drop and making sure you have the context you need to navigate these choppy legal waters. Drop a comment below and tell me how you are handling these changes in your state, because your experience is a valuable part of this conversation. Stay safe out there, keep your head on a swivel, and I will see you in the next one.